What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you my 2023 SEC football predictions standings / conference championship predictions for the 2023 college football season. We have officially completed our 2023 college football predictions. This past Friday, you can go back and watch all those predictions down in this description below in the playlist. And we did every single Power 5 team. Now it's time to give you the conference standings and also conference championship predictions based on those predictions that we did for the 2023 season. We started these, in the month of May, and now we're going to give you a conference championship prediction and also give you the conference standings and what the conference standings would look like based on our predictions that we did for the 2023 season. We're going to start with the SEC here. We're going to do every single Power 5 conference. We'll start the SEC today, and then we'll do the ACC tomorrow. Wednesday, we'll do the Big Ten, and then Thursday, we'll do the Big 12, and then we'll end things out with the Pac-12 on Friday. And then we'll have my New Year's Six Bowl predictions, and then we'll do our college football playoff predictions as well. So stay tuned for those two videos. But let's get right into it here with my SEC predictions. Again, we'll give you a conference championship prediction right here at the end of this video. So let's get started here, and we'll start with the SEC East. And the SEC East, I think it's going to be pretty competitive this year, but it may be not really that close like it was last year. If you look at the top two teams from last year with Georgia and Tennessee, they dominated pretty much the SEC East from last year, so I kind of expect that to be the same story this year. But I think it's going to be pretty much a battle for that second or third place spot in the SEC East. We'll start with the SEC East here, though. Georgia at number 1 here in the SEC East. I have them winning the East once again this year. This is a team I predicted last year to win the East as well. I think Georgia is clearly the dominant team heading into 2023. They're definitely coming off, they are definitely the dominant team. No question about it. They've won back-to-back national championships. And this Georgia team's just got really a ton of talent loaded on their roster, and it's just going to be really hard to defeat this Georgia team. It seems like they're coming the new Alabama of college football as well. I have them finishing 12-0, 8-0 in the SEC record or regular season record, and 12-0 in the regular season. And I think Georgia's going to go undefeated. I think this is the only SEC team I really see going undefeated, and maybe the only team in all of college football to go undefeated. Last year they went 15-0. This year, I think last year they were the only undefeated team in all of college football, so maybe that could be the case once again this year. Because I see, like any other teams, maybe losing a regular season game because they play in a tougher conference. And Georgia does play in a tougher conference, but Georgia is a dominant team when it comes to the SEC. So I think Georgia will win the SEC East this year. I have them once again going 12-0, 8-0 in the conference. Their schedule's not really that tough. That's why I think they can easily go 12-0. Tennessee at number 2. I have them finishing as the second best team in the SEC. I have them going 9-3, 5-3 in the conference. And you're probably wondering, how is Tennessee 5-3? Well, I do have them losing to Florida on the road. I have them losing to Alabama and obviously Georgia at home. And I forgot to mention, the only game I think I could see Georgia losing in the regular season is this Tennessee team. I think Tennessee is the team that could probably beat Georgia in the regular season. They do get that game at home. That's a very winnable game, but I think Tennessee will be better than a 9-3 record this year. This team could probably go 10-2 once again because the schedule, I think, sets up nicely. They do have some tough road games, though, with Tennessee, or actually Alabama, tough road game on the road at Kentucky and Missouri. So they got some pretty losable games on the schedule, perhaps. Maybe they can lose them, but I think Tennessee is going to have a really explosive offense. Defensively is kind of what I'm concerned about for Tennessee. If that defense can get better, this Tennessee team could really be dangerous. Joe Milton's going to make his first full-time 12-game, season, so we'll see how he does. I think he has one of the strongest arms out of a quarterback in the SEC this year. So Tennessee, again, finishing 9-3 and 5-3 in the conference for me. South Carolina comes in at number 3. I have them finishing 7-5, 4-4 in the conference. They do have a non-conference game to start out the year against North Carolina. I do have them losing that game, but I have them beating Clemson at home in the rival game there. I think they do defeat Clemson this year. South Carolina, though, I think is going to take a step back where they were from last year. Spencer Rattler is coming back, so that's the good news there for South Carolina's offense. I think the offense is really going to be good. I think defensively is what I'm concerned about for the Gamecocks, but I think South Carolina is the third best team in the East this year. Kentucky comes in at number 4. I think this Kentucky team is going to be pretty good offensively. I think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. Defensively is what I'm concerned about for Kentucky, but I mean, the offensive line looks really strong for Kentucky. They brought in some transfers to help them out. You got Devin Leary, the transfer from NC State, coming in, and you also got a running back that's coming over from a Power 5 program in Vanderbilt. So, yeah, Kentucky brought in a ton of guys in the transfer portal. I think they're definitely going to be better than their record at 7-5, but the schedule is tough for them. They do have to play Alabama out of the West this year, and I do have them losing that game at home. I also have them losing to Tennessee at home. That's a game they could probably win. I think Kentucky will beat Florida as well in their schedule, but Kentucky does have a tough road game with Georgia on there, and that's going to be the toughest one there because they do have to play Georgia and Alabama both on the schedule at the same time. So I think Kentucky, their schedule is tough. That's why they come out to be 7-5 and 3-5 in the conference. Missouri at number 5, 6-6, 2-6 in the conference. I do have them at least getting a couple wins in the SEC. Missouri, I think, is going to be a really good team this year. I don't think they're going to be quite on the level, though, of Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee, perhaps. They do get Tennessee at home, so maybe they win that game and possibly go 7-5. But they do have a non-conference game with Kansas State. I do have them winning that game at home, and I also got them beating Memphis out of the non-conference in St. Louis. That's a neutral site game, but I think Missouri is going to be better than their 6-6 record. The schedule is tough, though, and it's kind of hard to tell how good this Missouri team was going to be. But I think this Missouri's team is going to be really good on both sides of the football. This team's got a lot of production coming back on both sides of the football, so we'll see how they do this year with their record and everything. So Missouri, I have them finishing 6-6 and 2-6 in the conference. Florida comes in here at number 6. They are tied here with Missouri for number 5. It came down to a tiebreaker, and it came down to the regular season matchup. And Missouri, I have them winning the regular season matchup against Florida. So that's how Missouri ended up ahead of the Florida Gators here. Florida, I think, is going to really struggle this year offensively. I really don't think the offense is going to be pretty good enough, but you got Graham Mertz coming in, the transfer from Wisconsin. How good of a quarterback can he be for this Florida team? There's just a lot of question marks for this Florida program, and also heading into Billy Napier's second season. So if Florida does have a bad year this year, maybe Billy Napier is not the right hire, but it's just a schedule, from last year to this year. The schedule is tough for Florida because they do have to play a non-conference game against Utah, and then you got a tough draw with the West because they have to play LSU on the schedule. And that's the tough part. Playing LSU on the schedule is tough. They also play Arkansas out of the West, but Florida does have a tough schedule, probably one of the toughest ones in the SEC this year. I think Florida probably will go 6-6 this year and 2-6 in the conference. And then I got Vanderbilt here at number 7, finishing 7th here in the SEC once again. I have them tied for conference wins with Missouri and Florida. I do have Vanderbilt beating Missouri on the schedule, but it came down to record-wise, and Missouri does have a better record than Vanderbilt, so that's what it came down to. Vanderbilt, I think, is going to be a well-improved team, but not enough to make it to a bowl game this year. I have them at least getting a couple wins in the SEC. I have them also beating Auburn on the schedule. They do get that game at home, so I think Vanderbilt's going to make some progress. I think this Vanderbilt team is going to be really good, but not really on the level of Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee. They're not even close to that level yet in the SEC yet, so Vanderbilt 5-7, missing out on a bowl game. I mean, maybe they can make a bowl game next year, but their schedule is really hard to tell how good they're going to be. And plus, they play Wake Forest out of the non-conference. That'll be a tough one there on the road, but that's a very winnable game for Vanderbilt. So that's the SEC East standings. I really don't see anybody going winless in the SEC East this year, but I do have Georgia dominating the East once again this season. Let's now go to the SEC West, and we'll start with number 1, Alabama, at 11-1 and 7-1 in the conference. I have them going 11-1. It's hard to predict against this Alabama team. I know they're going to be really young this year, but this team has talent. This team is still going to have talent, I think, enough to win the SEC West this year. Plus the teams that they lost to and played really tough on the road last year, like LSU, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, they get those games at home this year. So I think that's the reason why Alabama will go 11-1 this year. But it's very possible this team could go 10-2, maybe 9-3, because they do have Texas in the non-conference at home. If they lose that game, I could see this Alabama team going 10-2. it would really shock me if Alabama went 9-3 this year, maybe possibly finish third in the SEC West. We haven't seen Alabama do that in a long time in football history. I think Nick Saban will have this Alabama team ready to go by the time the season rolls around. I got Alabama winning the West this year. LSU at number 2. I have them finishing 10-2 with 6-2 in the conference. I do have them losing to Ole Miss on the road and also Alabama on the road. I think those are their toughest road games there on the schedule. LSU, though, I think they're going to be really talented this year, offensively and defensively. I think they have a really good secondary in the defensive side of the football. I think the linebacker position is going to be really huge for this LSU team. They got some talent, but they also have a pretty tough schedule with Florida State in the opener, and that game will be on a Sunday night. That's going to be a pretty good one there, and if LSU probably loses that game, this team will probably go 9-3. If they win that game, this team could probably go 10-2, but if they beat Alabama on the road, I could very well see this team going 11-1 or 12-0 if they also defeat Ole Miss. So LSU at number 2, Ole Miss and Texas A&M here tied for third. I do have Ole Miss winning the head-to-head matchup, so that's how Ole Miss came out to be at number 3 here in the standings. I have them going 8-4 and 4-4 in the conference. Ole Miss got a lot of transfers coming in, but also they have a tough schedule this year. They got Tulane, a Group of 5 team, on the road this year. They also have Georgia Tech, an ACC team, but Ole Miss should be the favorites going into that game. But yeah, Tulane's going to be a tough one because that Tulane team has a lot of production coming back, plus they won a New Year's Six Bowl, and I think they can give Ole Miss a scare. But I think Ole Miss will have a pretty good offense. Defensively is what I'm concerned about. Texas A&M at number 4. They have the most returning production coming back this year in the SEC. This team is absolutely loaded with returning production, but I have them going 8-4 and 4-4 in the conference. I also forgot to mention Alabama's one loss comes to Texas A&M on the road. I think that's the one game where Texas A&M will pull off an upset. I think Texas A&M is the team that could beat Alabama this year because that's the only game that Alabama has a true road test in. And Texas A&M, you look at the last couple matchups against Alabama, they've had Alabama's number now these past couple years. And remember a couple years ago, Texas A&M beat Alabama at home, so it really could happen again. But I have this team making it to a bowl game this year. They missed out on a bowl game last year, going 5-7. It was a very disappointing season, so I kind of expect Texas A&M to be better. Arkansas comes in at number 5. I have them finishing 7-5, 3-5 in the conference. Arkansas is a team that really took a step back from last year. They went 6-6 last year, 7-6 overall last year, but 6-6 in the regular season. KJ Jefferson's back at quarterback. You also got your returning running back coming back this year, and that's an incredible duo right there for Arkansas's offensive, top possessions and everything. I think Arkansas is going to be a pretty good team, maybe a decent team, and also a dark horse contender in the SEC this year. But I think Ole Miss and Texas A&M are probably in that dark horse conversation. But you probably don't want to sleep on Arkansas. This is a well-motivated Arkansas team, but I have them finishing 7-5 and 3-5 in the conference. And then Auburn comes in at number 6. I have them finishing 6-6 and 2-6 in the conference. Auburn's kind of in a rebuild mode, but they brought in some transfers to help them out. Peyton Thorne coming in, the transfer for Michigan State. If he starts, Auburn's going to be pretty good. I think this team can win maybe 7 or 8 games, but if he doesn't start, this team could probably just win 5 or 6 games. But I think Peyton Thorne is definitely the starting quarterback for this Auburn team. I think he's definitely capable of, bringing the table for this team. But I had this team going 6-6 and 2-6 in the conference. Plus, this team gets Alabama at home this year. That's a very winnable game now when you look at it. But I think this team gets at least a couple wins for Hugh Freeze's first season. It's going to take time for Auburn to get back to where they used to be, but I think Auburn will go to a bowl game this year, at least in their first year under Hugh Freeze. Then Mississippi State comes in here at number 7 and finishing last in the West. I don't think Mississippi State's going to be terrible this year, but it's just the brand new coaching staff and obviously, new things going in for this Mississippi State team. But I think this team is going to really be good this year. Maybe they'll be an underdog in the SEC. You got Will Rogers coming back at quarterback, and this offense looks to be pretty good. Defensively is kind of what I'm concerned about. They lost a lot of talent on that side of football from a year ago. So Mississippi State, I have them at least going to a bowl game and a couple wins in the SEC. And that's the West standings. I have Alabama again winning the West this year, but I think I really see every SEC West team making it to a bowl game, and I think this division is going to be wide open. It was very competitive last year like it was, and I think this year is going to be a lot more competitive than they were last year. And I think that's the same thing with the East, but I think the East will be well dominated by Georgia. So that's the West standings. Let's now get to the conference championship prediction, and it's between Alabama and Georgia. Once again, here in the SEC Championship, they made a couple years ago. That's the last time. We had Georgia and LSU last year in the SEC Championship. Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC Championship game a couple years ago. Alabama had Bryce Young by that time, and they also had one loss on the schedule to Texas A&M. Could Alabama do it again? Could they rebuild what they did a couple years ago and beat Georgia when Georgia was dominating all year long? Georgia, though, is going to have a talented team. Alabama's going to be young this year, but maybe they're better by this time when they get to the conference championship. I think the big issue for Alabama, though, is going to be the quarterback situation. I know they got a lot of quarterback problems right now with Jalen Monroe. We don't know who the starter is going to be for Alabama. I think this is an Alabama team that can run the football pretty well. They got some freshman running backs coming in, and maybe they can probably get past this Georgia defense, but I think Georgia, overall, they're just way too talented, and also Georgia's had Alabama's number now in the last couple years, and this is going to be a really good SEC championship matchup. I think at the end of the day, I think Georgia's just got the better overall team, the better overall roster, and I think they've been the dominant team ever since they won the national title in their first one. So I'm going to go with Georgia here to knock off Alabama in the SEC championship, and I think Georgia wins it all this year in the SEC once again, winning it back-to-back years. It'll be the first time that Georgia's won back-to-back SEC championships as well. They haven't done it before, but they've won back-to-back national championships. It could possibly be a three-peat, and I could see this Georgia team being overall the number one team in the college football playoff rankings as well. So that's my prediction for the SEC Championship, and those are my conference standings based on my predictions for the SEC for 2023 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about these standings. Do you agree or disagree? Do you feel confident with my predictions? I am pretty confident with my predictions when I look at them, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and also what do you think about this conference championship prediction as well. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.